One thing to know is that teacher professional development is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. In both international surveys and in US surveys, 9 out of 10 teachers have participated in professional development in the past year. And it's expensive. So studies in the US suggest that districts spend about 3% of total expenditures on teacher professional development. That ranges between 1 and 9%, and a recent study put the dollar figure at $1,800 per teacher per year. This sector has been historically very hard to study because professional development is very, very diffuse and diverse. There's just an array of content, for instance, math versus reading versus science. There's an array of foci. So for instance, within math, you can look at student learning of mathematics, you can look at formative assessment, you can look at math content, and there's also a variety of pedagogical styles. So it's been hard to make lessons or draw lessons from this research literature. Another reason that it's been difficult to draw lessons from this research literature is the types of studies that have gone on. So prior to 2002, 2005, you saw most studies with what we call cross-sectional designs. These are studies that observed teachers going to professional development and then observed teachers' impact on student outcomes and said, oh, well, it looks like teachers who go to X kind of professional development for 15 days have better student outcomes. The problem here is that these studies suffer from selection effects. So the teachers who choose to go to professional development, the teachers who choose to go to professional development for 15 days and choose to go to certain kinds of professional development were likely different from the teachers who chose not to. And so the studies are identifying differences between teachers rather than the impact of the professional development. More recently, there's been a rise, thanks to the US government and also internationally, in studies that are experimental. In these studies, lots of teachers volunteer or schools volunteer for a certain professional development program, and then they are randomly assigned to a treatment group or to a control group. And so by comparing the outcomes from those two types of teachers, you can identify a program effect rather than just differences between teachers. So what kind of professional development helps teachers and helps teachers improve student outcomes? The answer is, we don't know. So prior to 2010, a lot of scholars pointed to a consensus around the best or most effective features of professional development. They said professional development needed to be collaborative, it needed to be content-based, it needed to be focused around what teachers do in classrooms with students. But many of these studies suffered from the selection effects that I just talked about. The more recent studies, the experimental studies, have not yielded clear messages about what kinds of professional development seem to impact students. And there have been many, many programs that have all of these effective features that have had null results on teaching and learning. So at this point, it's impossible to generalize about what those effective features of professional development are. So that said, a colleague of mine at Harvard, Katie Lynch, and I have been looking over the last 6 months at rigorous studies of teacher professional development, and we think we're beginning to see some patterns. The first of those patterns is that coaching, individualized coaching, seems to work to improve both teachers' practice and student outcomes. This is true whether the program is an in-person program where somebody from the district comes and works with teachers on site, or whether it's a program in which teachers take videotapes of themselves, upload that video, and then conference with teachers over the internet. That kind of program obviously has advantages for rural schools or for teachers who are specialists. Now, there's a couple big buts associated with these coaching programs, however. First, the coaches have to be actually coaching. They have to actually be observing teachers and offering feedback to teachers on how to improve instruction. In the US, in many cases, that's not what coaches do. Coaches do more office work, more administrative work. Those types of coaching programs don't seem to work. Second, the programs that have been efficacious seem to be programs that invest a lot of time and energy in training their coaches for up to 1 year of training before coaches go into the field and begin working with teachers. And those coaches are often monitored and supervised by somebody outside the school district. So a second lesson from this research literature is that focusing professional development on helping teachers improve their everyday work does seem to be efficacious for both teaching practice and student outcomes. So for instance, there's a lot of programs that help teachers learn to teach with specific curriculum materials. Teachers will go through the curriculum materials, they'll do the lessons, they'll do the problems with each other, thus learning the content of the lessons that they'll be teaching and thinking with each other about how best to teach that content to students. Another kind of program that appears efficacious are programs that help teachers look at specific lessons and improve those specific lessons, or help teachers improve the lesson planning process. So sort of some of the brand names associated with this type of professional development are lesson study. You can Google Catherine Lewis at Mills College, who's written extensively about lesson study. Cognitively guided instruction, which is a program out of the University of Wisconsin and now UCLA. And also there are programs that have teachers thinking about their teaching and reflecting on their practice using often videos over a long period of time with observation protocols, and these also appear efficacious in helping teachers plan better instruction and enact better instruction in classrooms. So another lesson from this literature is to focus on the worst taught subjects, or the subjects where there is the most room for improvement of instruction. So in the United States, for instance, we're seeing stronger impacts in elementary and middle school science. We see weaker impacts in mathematics and to some degree English language arts instruction. And that's probably because in the United States, math and ELA are both reasonably well taught. They're both taught to a medium level of standard, and you fail often in these experimental studies to see a good treatment contrast. Teachers in the control group are doing many of the best practices recommended by the professional developers. And so because of that equality, you're not going to see big effects of professional development. This yields a little bit of a pickle because you may not care so much about science or home economics. You might care a lot about improving student outcomes in math or in reading. So it's just a trade-off or a choice that you need to make when thinking about where to invest professional development dollars. So the last lesson from this research literature is that professional development needs your help. You can contribute to this literature and contribute to helping us know what is effective in terms of professional development features. It's actually not hard to conduct a rigorous study of teacher professional development. There needs to, we think, be three things in place for that to happen. First, this system has to track student outcomes, like student test scores, so we can compare teacher attendance at professional development with those student outcomes. Second, the system has to track teacher attendance at professional development, or be able to assign teachers randomly to a treatment and control group so that we can compare outcomes in that way. Third, the system needs to be able to modestly support academics or evaluators to go out and collect data and conduct the research. Often this is just something that is as cheap as buying out a course for a professor, or paying for a research assistant to help collect the data. I'd urge you, if your system has the capacity to do this, that you think seriously about contributing to this research literature by contacting academics or evaluators in your local city, or if you are in need of expert outside help, by contacting me or other colleagues in the United States conducting programs of this kind, because we are always very happy to help rigorous studies get off the ground so that we can know more about what kinds of professional development helps teachers and helps kids.